الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So inshallah ta'ala, the topic now will be the journey I had to Niger. And Niger is a country in West Africa. Just above Niger you have Algeria and Libya from the north, and on the east you have Chad, on the south you have Nigeria, and on the west you have Mali and Burkina Faso. Now, Niger is known to be one of the poorest countries in the world, if not the poorest country in the world. And it was colonized by France. And what is amazing to see is the population is classified today as 99% Muslim population. So you can see it's one of the poorest countries in the world, yet it is a complete Muslim country. 99% Muslim population. And when we think about the poorest country in the world, or poor people, or poverty, sometimes it doesn't actually come to us and hit us what is the actual definition of poverty, what does it mean? And if we are talking about poverty in terms of possession, then no doubt that they are in severe poverty. If we are talking about poverty in the heart, then it seems that we are the ones who have been struck with poverty, and they are actually wealthy and rich. Now, before any journey begins, or any program where there is some type of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are expecting, then there is no doubt shaitan will come as much as he can to try and destroy the act of ibadah. So even in subhanAllah, in our journey when we sat on the plane in the UK, there was a delay for 2 hours on the plane. So when we got to Casablanca for our transit, we had missed the transit. And Qadarullah, the next flight was in 2 days' time. So now already shaitan has come and taken 2 days off our program. So we're just sitting in Casablanca waiting for the flight to come in 2 days' time. When we did go, finally, 2 days later, and we flew to Niamey, which is the capital of Niger, the amazing thing was we were going to a city called Tahoua. And there are 2 airports. Niamey is about 13 to 15 hour car drive to Tahoua, and the other airport will be about a 20-hour car drive to the city. Now, the way the roads are in Niger are very different to the UK. So from one side of the country to the other, there's one road that goes all the way there. It's one lane going forward and the other lane going back. And both lanes are together, nothing in between that separates them. And the terrain is not as good as we find in this country. So some of it will be lane, and others will be just sand and rocks and grass and whatever you have there. So you can imagine the journey will be very difficult. And not only this, but when you find that these cities are away, so there's no sea next to it, because it's in West Africa, there's countries around it. And there's no airport nearby. So when you look at cities like this, how many people are going to, and charities are going to be willing to actually take this route to deliver aid and help to these places? Because who wants to go through that sacrifice to be able to get there? So that's why it makes us think already. We're going to have extremely poor people. And even though this is a city, it's going to be one of the more flourishing areas of Niger, it's going to be deprived of a lot of goodness because they are very difficult to get to. So we began our journey from Niamey, and it was actually quite amazing because when we came to the border of Niamey, the police there do not allow any foreigners to go past in order to try and protect their culture and their religion. So alhamdulillah, because we were coming through a charity, they allowed us to go through. And when we stopped just in the middle of nowhere for Fajr, we found that there was like a very small masjid, and maybe 5 people to 10 people can pray in that masjid, and that's the maximum capacity. And you find little houses that were there made out of mud. And there are no shops nearby, there are no markets nearby, and there are a few families living there. And you go, and we went to speak to some of the families. We had some of the brothers with us, 2 of the mashayikh that were with us. And when we spoke to them, like they are in a, subhanAllah, they're living in an area where they don't have any connection to the outside world. At the same time, they are going to survive and live of what they have and what they grow. But they do not fear poverty, they do not fear hardship, and they have sincere and great taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and tawakkul. Like one of the brothers, the first brother actually that we met when we were there, we spoke to him. He had, mashallah, 2 wives, 13 children. And if you look at his house, maybe any of the rooms in our houses will be bigger than his entire house. And there was a fire, and there was a pot of water on the fire. And we asked him what this was for. He said all of his family are going to have a ghusl in this water today. Now Allahu A'lam where he even got the water from. There are no wells, there are no lakes, there are no streams. So even to gather water together is very difficult. But you find, subhanAllah, their family are happy. They're not complaining. And they're content with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them. And throughout the journey we saw different types of people living in different places. So most of the houses there will be made out of mud. But we find areas where the houses are made out of straw and sticks. And you find, subhanAllah, even within these houses and these compounds that they have, we have maybe 10 people, 15 people, 20 people living there. And the entire community, they're tight-knit communities. Meaning, your neighbor is allowed to slap your child. And he's allowed to discipline your child. And that's why you find, wherever you go, irrespective of whether ilm has reached them, knowledge has reached them or not, when it is the time for salah, everybody prays. And this is one of the most amazing things I saw. Like imagine subhanAllah, we were driving hours and hours from different places. And it is very rare to see a woman not wearing hijab. Very rare. Maybe in my whole time there, you can probably count 3 or 4 women maybe. All of the women wear hijab. All of the young girls wear hijab. And Islam has not reached them to the level it's reached us. Some of them don't have phones. Some of them don't have internet connections. Some of them have never met anyone from other than the town or the village that they're living in. So they have learnt religion from their parents, from their grandparents, and that's why they may not be the most fluent in reciting Quran. But when it comes to salah time, everybody's praying. So if you're driving in the salah time, you find a small jama'ah, 5 people, 10 people, 5 people, 20 people. Everyone is just praying jama'ah. And then you come across a masjid, and it's overflowing with tens of people outside the masjid praying. So wherever you go, the adhan goes, and people are performing wudu. Sometimes you find people that have like a carrier bag, they'll hang it up on a tree, pierce a hole in it, and that's how they do wudu. They have techniques, mashallah, none of us have. And the way they will use, the techniques that they have to do wudu and just live life, they have skills, subhanAllah. And Allah Jalla wa Ala has given them Imaan. So you find it's a nation that people are praying salah. The time of salah comes, they don't miss their salah. Their children are praying salah. Even one of the mashayikh, when he went there, because this subhanAllah was inspired to go there after the charity asked, because I saw, and I don't know if you know, the legacy of Shaykh Abdul Rahman al-Sumayyid and also Shaykh Khalid al-Rashid. These are 2 pioneers when it came to da'wah and charity that went to Niger. And Shaykh Khalid al-Rashid said when he went for Tarawih, because he went in Ramadan, he said, how long is your Tarawih? He said, we pray after Isha until Allah Jalla wa Ala allows us. He said, okay, how long do you pray? A rough time. He said, just as long as we can go. So he said, what is this time? He said, we go from Isha until maybe about half an hour before Fajr. So he said when he went to the masjid thinking no one would be there, the women are praying, the men are praying, the children are praying, and he says he's stretching his leg and trying to, feel comfortable in salah, and everyone is just standing, focusing, praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a different world. And it reminded me so much of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the fuqara, the poor and the needy will enter Jannah before the rich. Why is this? Because they have nothing from the dunya to be questioned about. Remember, we will be asked about our blessing. These clothes that you are wearing, how did you acquire them? Did you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for them? These meals that you were eating, once the Prophet ﷺ was sitting with his companions, and they had like a luxury meal, they had some meat, which was luxurious for them. And the Prophet ﷺ, after consuming it, said to them, you will be asked about this on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So we look at them, and we went into some of their houses, they have nothing there, maybe a few pots, and a blanket, and maybe a straw mat on the floor to sleep on, or a very small mattress to sleep on. That is everything that they own, and the clothes that they are wearing on their bodies. They do not have anything else at all. So on Yawm al-Qiyamah, he's going to be asked about 10 items from the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him, from the material blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him. So we can imagine how long our hisab will be when we have to try and account for everything that we have, and they will only have 10 items, 15 items. So we made this journey to Tahawa from Niamey, and we stopped at a number of places on the way there to freshen up and to stretch our legs. And once we got to, and subhanAllah, the ride when it's off-road, and if you say, like when you hear an off-road ride, you can't imagine anything like this in this country. And we were obviously tired, and coming from the west firstly, and secondly, not experiencing roads like this. So if you try and fall asleep, your head will hit the top of the car within the next 5 or 10 seconds. Or your head will hit the side, or you will clash with the person next to you, or he's on top of you, or you're on top of him. And all sorts are happening to the car. And subhanAllah, the roads are so bad that we saw even a truck which was falling off the road. And if you blink your eye, khalas, you're going off the road. It's very dangerous. And that's why many people don't make that journey to go there. And sometimes they do say the Christian missionaries do come in and they try and open their schools. But alhamdulillah, because of the iman that Allah Jalla wa Ala has given them, sometimes you would find, I didn't actually see any myself, but some of the mashayikh, they said you will find sometimes these big schools that are open, which will feed you 3 meals a day, and there are people living in straw huts around them that would refuse to even take a single meal from them. They would rather eat the leaves and the sand on the floor than to go and compromise with their religion for food. So you find, subhanAllah, iman with the poor. Now when we got to the city, the first project that we had, and I went to Muntada, and the first project that we had was the cataract operations. And this is, subhanAllah, something which was very cheap. It was about £70 or £80 for the operations. Now when they work in their farms and they work outside, layers of dust, it begins to gather in their eyes. And to it clouds their vision, and to after a number of years, they become completely blind. So sometimes in one eye, and sometimes in 2 eyes. Now, their operation was only about 70 or 80 pounds, and they carried out, mashallah, 1,200 operations. Now, you can see, subhanAllah, that most of them were the elderly that were coming. Some of them haven't seen for 10 years, for 15 years. And now they're going to get the blessing of the eyesight back. You can imagine how they are feeling now. And subhanAllah, one thing I saw with these people was the level of patience that they had. I don't think I've seen anyone in my life that has patience like they have. Like you would see them waiting for the operation. They will sit down on a mat for 20 hours and only move for salah. You will not see them complain. You will not see them asking, when is it going to be my turn? They're just waiting. 20 hours they're waiting. If you go and talk to them, they will talk to you. They're smiling and they're just sitting there. And maybe 20 hours later, it's time for the operation. They'll go, they'll have the operation, they'll put the bandage on them. Sometimes it's 2 eyes, if it's both eyes. And then the next day they will come back to remove this, and then inshallah they'll be able to see. And one of the uncles as well, he was, subhanAllah, we saw him. He had both bandages on both eyes, and someone had laid a mat down for him on the floor, and he was laying down there. So we asked about it, and they said his house is too far for him to go to. So he's just going to sleep here in the night. And that's it. He's going to rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's going to sleep on the sand on his mat. And tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala, we hope that he's going to be able to see. And we asked some of them, how did you even hear about this place? So some of them said, we heard on the radio that they were going to give operations for free. So some of them made the journey, for an 80-kilometer journey, for them will take them about 2 days or 3 days, depending on what they have for transport. So they would come, and some brothers came from the border of Niger, which is touching Algeria. And they came down, made a journey for about a week, just to inquire about the next program. There's no phone call, there's nothing. They're just coming just to inquire, when is the next session going to happen, so we can bring our people to have the operation. And subhanAllah, we spoke to an uncle, many uncles we spoke to. One of the uncles, he said, I became blind because I used to read so much Quran. So you can imagine he was reading and he was working on the farm. He was reading and then he became blind. Now he hasn't seen a page of the Quran for 10 years. You can imagine 10 years now he hasn't seen a page of the Quran. And the operation was successful, mashallah. He was able to see. And we asked him, what are you going to do when you go home? He goes, I want to go and see my family, and I want to see if I can recognize the words of the Quran. And this is the iman. Like these are stories that sometimes we hear. We never experience this firsthand. But subhanAllah, the iman Allah Jalla wa Ala has given them. Everything is like, because you don't have possessions in the dunya. You're not fighting for anything in this world. Whatever you have, you share with your neighbors, you share with your companions. And they'll say, if you have a walima in the town, everybody eats meat. If somebody has an animal he wants to sacrifice, everybody eats meat. It's not like he's going to hoard it for himself or gather it only for his family. Even if he only has one small piece, everyone is going to eat something from the village. And that's why they say, even though it's one of the poorest countries in the world, they consume more meat than any other country. Because meat is one of the cheapest things in their country, because that's their livestock is what they have. So when they increase in their livestock, as a shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will sacrifice and everyone will eat. And when people donate, because livestock is very cheap, they donate livestock. And then people can benefit from this, from the milk, and they can benefit from the meat as well. So we find the level of patience was amazing from the people. And wherever you go, they would greet you, and they would welcome you as if, subhanAllah, as if we were some sort of like celebrities that were coming in. And we're thinking that you guys have more iman than us. We have been given so much by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yet we are not as grateful as you are. We do not have as contentment like you do. Our level of patience is nothing compared to yours. Even our level of ibadah is nothing compared to yours. And you have nothing to be accountable for in Yawm al-Qiyamah from the possessions that you have. But we have so much to be accountable for. So we find very kind people. You go to the marketplaces, you can hear Quran being recited. You can hear people reciting Quran. Obviously, occasionally you see some sins, but generally speaking, it's very safe. And the people, they help each other to to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We went to one of the straw villages, the villages where all of the houses were made out of straw. And just like the youth in this country, or generally the Muslims in this country, we like to socialize, there's a straw hut where the youth will drink tea. And they have their own straw hut, their own tea spot where they drink tea. But you find, even in these areas, large families, again, no one fears poverty. Like I was asking from the brother, I said, next time when we come, inshallah ta'ala, we need to stay and spend an entire day and night with them. Just to see where do they get their water from. Now after Maghrib, there's no electricity. There's no light. There's nothing at all. There's no flowing water. There's no well. There's no gas. There's no shops. How do you survive? Like, imagine now if someone said to us, we're going to put you in a place like this to survive for even a day. Remember one of the mashayikh that were there saying, that bring your women and your children here, they'll not even survive in 2 hours. Because you've got nothing, you've got no toys for the kids. You've got no school for them to go to. There's nothing at all. There's no hospital, there's no clinic, there's nothing at all. It's just their huts that they live in, and that's it. And when you come out there, and we spoke to some of them, we brought them, we said, who is the president of this country? I don't know. Meaning your whole world is this village. You don't know anything that's happening outside there, but when it's Salah time, you're praying Salah. It's amazing. It's Salah time, you're praying Salah. And all of the kids, the etiquettes that they have, like the manners, they see someone who's older than them, they kiss their hand. If you're going to give something to them, if you're older than them, they put 2 hands out to take it out of respect. They have their own tradition and their customs. It just shows that they've been taught etiquette, they've been taught manners without having to go to school, just from their parents and the simple life that they have. Then we had the project that we did from this masjid, where we sacrificed a number of animals. And Allah allowed us to sacrifice this with our own hands as well. And it was amazing that Allah allowed. Like He gave us life, subhanAllah, to take life. He gave us life to take life. And sacrificing an animal is from the greatest acts of ibadah. And to see, subhanAllah, that the animal is alive in front of you, and within maybe 2 or 3 hours, all of the animals have been skinned, all of the animals have been cut, and literally thousands of people are benefiting from the meat. Literally, subhanAllah, you see queues and queues. Remember, each family will have a piece where their whole family of 10 or 15 people will be able to eat 2 or 3 meals with. So you can see, imagine the amount of people that benefit. And after we did this project, we went to other houses. And again, we found people, Allah knows best how they survive. We went to a house, an elderly woman was living there. She was about 80 years old. She was a widow, she has no children, and she can just about move. But she has nothing at all in her house. I'm telling you, if you saw her house, you would believe that no one was living there. The floor is mud, the walls are mud, the ceiling is mud. There is nothing in her house, not a single item in her house. And when you go through the door in the house, it's open in the inside, and then she has a little mat where she sits. How she survives, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So the brothers, they had a project, and we didn't do a collection in this masjid for it, because we only wanted to limit it to only a few projects, so it's easier to organize. But they had a project where they would give 4 or 5 animals to families, so they can use. They have an animal that they can milk and use, and then the animals can reproduce, and they can eat, and they can sell. So they gave it to the auntie and a number of families that were there. But you find, subhanAllah, the lifestyle is completely different to what we have. Like I was asking myself, how dare we ever complain for anything that Allah Jalla wa Ala has given us, or anything that has been taken away from us? Because they have nothing at all. And we went to another village, and this was about, it was a 20-minute drive away from the city, 20-minute off-road, so there were no roads there at all. And we got to an area, maybe there was about 3 or 4 houses there. That's it, nothing else around them. And we gave, alhamdulillah, the houses animals for them to survive on. And when we saw that you have no friends, no companions, nothing at all except for your own few families that are living there. And this is their entire life. And again, when it comes to Salah time, we pray the Salah. All of the women are wearing hijab. And the Salah time comes and everybody prays. It makes us think, how can we ever miss a Salah after the blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us? How can we ever be ungrateful after the blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us? And after we spent a few days there, and then we made our way back to the capital, Niamey, we were stopping in places throughout. We met one of the imams of one of the masajid on the way back. He was in the village. And he took us to some of the houses to show us some of the ways that they were living. And these are the more wealthy people. Again, maybe 5 items in their house to 10 items in their house. And then maybe a few animals they may have. Some people don't even have animals. So Allahu A'lam how they survive. But sometimes we take it for granted, even water, running water. When these families don't have water, it doesn't mean they have to struggle to just get water. It changes their whole life. Because now, the kids, instead of now sitting down studying Quran, or sitting down and learning anything about the deen or the dunya, they will have to travel for hours every day to carry water back. So the whole frame of the family, the whole structure of the family, it changes now. They're not gaining knowledge, they're not benefiting this dunya, they can't work to gain anything because they have to go and carry water and bring it back to their village. So having a supply of water isn't just giving them water, it's changing their entire lives. It's allowing them to go to school, it's allowing them to get an education, it's allowing them to work. Because they can't even work, because if they go and work, who's going to go for the 2-hour walk to get water for them? Or the hour walk to get water for them? And who's going to carry it back for them? And you find, subhanAllah, the kids, mashallah, Allah has given them strength. They'll fill up large containers of water. The small children, they'll put it on their heads and they'll walk back with it. And we were saying if any of our kids were to fight their kids, khalas, our kids would have no chance. And these kids, Allah has given them strength. They're made out of steel. Now, we took the long journey back to Miami, and then we went to one of the villages. And this is a project, and maybe inshallah ta'ala brothers and sisters can get together to initiate projects like this. So in the institute that we have, the Nakhla Institute, we've started a project called the 10 Promised Jannah Project. And the 10 Promised Jannah Project, that we have 3 terms every year. Now every term, we gather £100 donation per person. And we put the money together, and then we make a masjid on one of the names of the 10 Promised Jannah. So, and this is the jama'ah. So if you have 150 to 200 people working together, you're going to collect between 15 to 20,000 pounds every term. And to collect 100 pounds is not a lot, because you can either give it yourself, or you can collect it from your friends and family. So it shows you how the jama'ah works. So we established in Masjid Abu Bakr as-Siddiq there. So we went to the village, and we found the children, and everyone had come out of the village as if it was the day of Eid. Because they found that those who have contributed to the well and to the masjid are coming. Now for us, again, we're nobody. And we will believe that they are even better than us. But everybody has come. All of the men, all of the women, all of the children. It's like an Eid day. And even one of the sheikhs, he said when we were going there, he said, they are taking this day like an Eid. Because they know that you are coming and you are the ones who are funded for this masjid and this well to be established here. When we went there, the well was already constructed, and they were already taking water from the well for the last few weeks. And they began constructing the masjid and the 2 classrooms that they would have for Quran. And everybody was there, and subhanAllah, it's amazing. Because one of the brothers, he shouted out takbir. And you find, they're living in the village, are they going to respond, are they not going to respond? All of the children, hands in the air, Allahu Akbar, Allahu. It's like, just to see it gives you goosebumps. And you find that the children, they're sitting down, and they're reading Quran, and again, we had to go off-road for about 20 minutes, to 15 to 20 minutes to get to them. So they've got someone there who's teaching them Quran, they've memorized the futures of the Quran, they're learning the deen, again everybody is covered. And it's just an environment where there's only deen and there's no dunya whatsoever. And the children will make their own games, so they find like a broken tire and they'll have a stick and they'll see how long they can keep the tire up for. Or they'll like play with stones, and their games are like this. And again with the water, they will carry the water to their houses, it will still take them 15-20 minutes to their houses by walking. And we went to one of the villages, and he said to us, do you want to see his Lexus? He has a Lexus. A Lexus in the village. So we went there, he showed us this old donkey. Because this is his Lexus. But the brother was so happy that we came, he wanted all of us one by one to sit on his donkey. So we sat there, he's like, okay, take a picture. So we took a picture. And in these villages, imagine, some of these villages, no one has seen a mobile phone. In fact, one of the brothers who was taking us around, and he was fluent in Arabic, he said to us, that about 20 years ago, it was approximately 20 years ago, one of the sheikhs from Saudi Arabia came to Niger. And he goes, by looking at him, he looked like a sheikh. And I had a bit of Arabic with me then, so I was speaking to him, and he had information that he was giving me about the deen. So I was quite impressed. So I stayed with him for the time that he was there. And then I said to him, I asked him, is there any way I can study the deen? He says, listen, I'll take your name down, and I will put you into Medina University. All you have to do is send me an email. And he gave the email address. So the brother now, he said, I went everywhere looking for an internet connection, and I could not find it. So I never got accepted into university. For years he was looking. For years he was looking for an internet connection. Even when he found the internet connection, no one knew how to make an email address. So it's the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one of the brothers even said to me, he goes, look, we went to Sudan and we went to other places. He goes, you got to go to Egypt, you got to go to Medina. This is the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How many of us want to go out to actually study? But we're unable to study. And that's why the da'wah, they have very few mashayikh, and the da'wah is very weak. But one of the reasons for this is because they have so many languages amongst themselves. If we go to the capital, one of the brothers, he couldn't understand the language of the capital. So when you go to villages on the way, because they have so many different dialects and languages, You can't have a few people going around the entire country giving da'wah because the people will not understand that. So it becomes extremely difficult to give da'wah. But you just find again how poor the people are and how content they are. And then the final project we had, which we also did from this masjid, was the sewing machine project. So there were sisters that were gathered together, and they began the training on that day, and they were going to be given 2 months training, and whoever completes the training program, they will be given a sewing machine, like a very advanced sewing machine that they can use inshallah ta'ala for their livelihood and their provisions, the condition that they do not sell it. And then they will be monitored every few months to see how well they are doing, and they will be helped inshallah ta'ala, and this will inshallah ta'ala increase them in provisions. But subhanAllah, so many lessons to be taken, especially like the hardship. Like one of the things that the brothers told me before going, he said, have the mentality that you are going to come out of your comfort zone. And we're used to, mashallah, like nice houses, running water, nice toilets, all of these things. One of the brothers, he was affected with illness on the way back. He had to keep going out of the car. As the Prophet used to do, أَبْعَدَ وَاسْتَتَرْ. He used to go to the distance, cover himself, dig a hole, and he had to relieve himself and come back. And every now and then he had to keep doing this. Again, it's all part of the experience. Some people will crack under pressure like this, and other people, they will just have to think of this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed, and this is what I'm going to do. But this is the lifestyle that people have. Now, for us to reflect on something like this, like even the level of patience, as I said, sitting down for 15 hours, 20 hours. And you know, subhanAllah, whenever you ask them, how are you feeling now? Is there anything we can get you? Is there anything we can help you with? They wouldn't even ask us for money. They wouldn't ask us for food. They wouldn't ask us for anything. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions them in the Quran, مُسْتَعْفِفِينَ, those who refuse to ask. They're in poverty, but they do not ask. And some of the mashayikh were telling us, some of these brothers and sisters, they have so much izzah, like honor, that they would never ask anyone. They will just rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do whatever they can to survive, and they know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do the rest. Like we saw one of the brothers after he went through a difficult journey, and I said, subhanallah, this brother here is because of his dua for rizq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took us on this dangerous journey just to give him the rizq. This is how it is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered his dua, and alhamdulillah, he allowed us to be the answer for his dua. But all of this that we had to go through, it was because of the dua that he made. And some of them, we asked one of the uncles that when we gave some animals to him, about 4 or 5 animals, we asked him, did you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these animals? He said, Wallahi, this morning I raised my hands to Allah, said, oh Allah, give me some help. And then I saw in the distance your cars coming. And cars don't come there. So I said, this is the answer to my dua. And when you see, subhanAllah, this first hand, like it hits you straight away in your heart. That subhanAllah, this person made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, instantly he got the answer to his dua. And there are certain people, Allah Jalla wa'ala answered their dua straight away, especially if they are upon Iman. Like when it was the time for salah, like we were combining between our salahs. So when it came to one time, one of the salah, we went to the houses, none of the men are there. So we're waiting now. Where are all of the men? They all gone to the masjid. All of them have gone. You won't find any men, you won't find any children. Everybody's gone to the masjid. So we went to the masjid, and the village maybe had about 20 huts. And in that masjid, there were about 30, 40 people, the entire village from the adults, and you find a number of kids there, and everyone's praying salah. Meaning the community will come. So we went to one of the sheikhs when we were doing a distribution. We said to one of the uncles of the village, who's in charge of this village? And every village has the head. So he said, look, I'm in charge. I said, okay, we want to give something to everyone, so can you make sure everyone gets it? So he was taking us around, he goes, everybody is here today, except for one person, he's unwell, so he was unable to come to Salah. The community know each other. And this is how they can keep an eye on each other. So the one who's not there, if he's not there in the masjid, they know he's unwell. So they will go to his house and find he's on the floor, he's unwell. And that's how the society is. They will know exactly who is unwell if he wasn't at the masjid. If he was at the masjid, alhamdulillah, he's okay. If he's not there, the only reason he's not there is because he was unwell. Now again, how many times do we miss the jama'ah? How many times do we make excuses and we don't actually have an excuse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But these are things to reflect from. Even though they are so poor, their iman is there. Like one of the sheikhs, he actually mentioned to me, he said, even when the Charlie Hebdo incident happened, then the Prime Minister of the country, he stood up and he said that we are with Charlie. You know, the disused Charlie, what they were saying. He said, the Muslims were fuming. He said, we are 99% Muslim country, you're supposed to be representing us. So he said they started causing chaos and burning the government buildings down and doing all of these things. He said, this is our Prophet that they're speaking about. So he goes, even in the khutbah, the Jum'ah, the Khatib, they stood up and they said, look, continue doing what you're doing because this is our izzah. This is our deen. However poor they are, that love for Islam is there. And that jealousy, that ghairah for the Prophet is there. And they are not going to let anyone come in the way. And we went to, subhanAllah, one of these villages. This wasn't actually a village, this was on the road, so there was a small town there. And we went to a shop, and because we were one of the brothers, mashallah, he has a phone shop or electric shop in this country. So when we went there, he said, there's a shop, let's go inside. He wants to see what they're selling. So we went there, and you find just so many mobile phones everywhere. And they're all being charged. We asked the brother, he'll translate for us, what's he doing? So he's the only brother in the area who has electricity. So everybody pays him money and he charges their phones. So it's amazing, subhanAllah, to see. But this is his job, he's charging everybody's phone. And he has literally, if you saw it, subhanAllah, so many phones on the floor, on the side, it's like a phone shop. Except everything's being charged. I don't know where he was getting the electricity from. he mashallah, he tapped into the market, mashallah, and he had his phone shop. But even like their food, their culture, again, they're upon deen, and that's the main thing. We find people upon deen who are patient, who give shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and subhanAllah, so much shukr. You'll walk around and you'll find just, if anyone's in need of help, whether you know the person or not, they'll help them. And that's how the Muslim community should be. And generally that's how it used to be until, like the ulama say, until the cities were built, when they were living in small towns and villages, because everyone knew everyone, it was like one family that was there. And everyone would take care of each other. If you saw someone slipping away, you would bring them back. But now because we live in large buildings or apartments and in cities, we don't even know our neighbors. We don't know those who are close to us anymore. Even our relatives we very rarely visit or see. And we need to try and bring these traditions of the Prophet back, Islamic traditions back, where we become tight-knit communities again so we can keep an eye on them. Because if one of them was to go astray, the whole community will be after him. And they'll bring him back to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it becomes harder to even deviate from the path of Allah Jalla wa Ala. But these are inshallah some of the points of benefit. And just to reflect inshallah ta'ala, I think on the Telegram page, they have put the video of the journey. And just for us to reflect on and just continue thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessings. When they received, when their eyes were returned back to them, the shukr that they were making, you cannot comprehend. The shukr that they were making. And we already have our eyes, and we can probably see better than they can now. They'll make sajda to shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They'll raise their hands in dua. And the amount of dua they will make for all of those who donated and all of those who contributed. It's like subhanAllah, it's like they've entered Jannah. And for them it's a different life completely. And it's just it's the blessing of the eyes which all of us have. So we do not thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this a benefit for all of us to reflect and take heed. And to allow us to be from those who thank Him for the blessings that He has given us, so we can be from those who will enter Jannah first. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.